Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Stepsbasic and welcome back to my community show. It's getting a little repetitive, isn't it? I can't think of any different styles of singing to do it in. I could just keep doing all the Anyway, not important. Right now, today, now that we're done with Spooktober, and I don't have to do all my Halloween-themed community shows anymore, I am moving on to different topics, new topics, special topics. Today, we're talking about the topic of, are video games too hard? I know this is kind of a topical thing because was it that one fella who that one game reviewer journalist fella wrote up an article about Cuphead and got stuck and all that fun stuff, and raises the issue of, are video games too hard these days? I don't want to say no. Because there are certain examples of which, would make that a false statement. But basically, these days, no. Video games aren't too hard these days. Not anymore. I'm going to clarify that. Now, first of all, let's look at the game in question, the one that has been the target of this, namely Cuphead, which is a side-scrolling bullet hell boss fighting game where you have to go and you have to shoot things. And this looks like a difficult game. You're watching, I'm watching some people play, and I can't get it, obviously, because it's a Microsoft exclusive, Xbox and PC only, not for the PlayStation and all them folks. But that's a topic for a different game, a different video about exclusives and why I don't particularly care for them. But like I said, topic for another game, another video. Cuphead is arguably a difficult game. Watching other people play it, and you're like, wow, this guy's getting slaughtered. This guy's died like 50 times just on this one boss alone. Or even the regular levels are like difficult. And funny enough, when I watch it, I don't see it like that. I see it as a very nostalgic game. And not just because of the art style. I look at that art style and I'm like, wow, I like those cartoons. I used to watch those cartoons all the time when I was a kid. Now, true, they do have some questionable things in them. Particularly because, Disney himself was a pretty big anti-Semite, which was pretty ridiculous. But, they've moved away from that, and they've gone on to the more politically correct stuff and more family-friendly things, and tried to erase all that stuff in the past. But there was a lot of good cartoons back then, and that art style does definitely remind me of those cartoons I used to watch. Saturday morning, sitting down, watching the Looney Tunes, watching them with their little antics, and they're bouncing, and they're dancing, and they're beating each other up with heavy metal objects that, in real life would kill each other. But, that was fun, and I like that nostalgia. And, that's a big thing these days. Nostalgia is, like, the thing, but if you ask me, it's just not what it used to be. But even beyond that, I look at Cuphead and I see games like Galaga, I see games like Mega Man, and the other sorts of, I guess they're called bullet hells now. They were just the standard game back in my day when I was playing on NES and whatnot. And then Super Nintendo and then all that stuff, when you're flying around in this little spaceship and shooting stuff, and you got everything coming at you from the other side of the screen, and that's nothing new to me. Everybody's looking at this game like this is like the biggest, hardest game in the world, and I'm looking at it like I played this stuff when I was in diapers. Now, you can look at me, and especially look at some of my past videos recently with Deadlight especially, and Little Nightmares, and say, you're saying that these games aren't hard, but you went and died a whole lot in these. Well, those were me. I'm rusty. I don't play video games for fun so much anymore. So as a consequence, my gameplay abilities are suffering. Apart from that, yes, there are certain games that have been released recently that are arguably, or at least notably, difficult. Few that come to mind, i.e. Cuphead and Alien Isolation was unforgiving, and I loved that. And Dark Souls is one that everyone always cites as a hard game. I've never played it, I can't vouch for it, but from what I've seen, it is a fairly difficult game and unforgiving in its own right. But that's the sort of thing that leads into this. Are video games too hard? In my opinion, no. They've gotten a lot easier. A lot easier. I mean, we have functions like autosave. We have functions like regenerating health. I mean, the Call of Duty franchise. Good example. You don't have a life bar. You don't have to find health packs. If you get shot, just crouch behind a wall and wait for your eyes to stop bleeding. We didn't have that with the first Call of Duty. You had a life bar. If you wanted to not die, you had to find health packs. And now you just have to sit down and regenerate. Granted, of course, to sort of balance it out, you have less health to go off of, and a headshot's generally a one-hit kill. Where back in the day, that wasn't so much a thing. And then you got games like Dark Souls, which are your standard walk around and kill battle things. And back in my day, we had things like Phantasy Star and other sorts of linear hallway games where you're walking down hallways and you have to face, a monster suddenly appears, and if you didn't have the right equipment, you're dead. That's basically how it metered out. And Mega Man was the same way. It was a bullet hell, arguably by today's standards, where you face all these different challenges, and you have to kill the bosses literally in the right order. And they don't tell you what the right order is, because the weapon that you get from the last boss is what you use on the next boss. And only one of those bosses is weak to your standard weapon, and every other boss is strong against it. So you have to find the one boss who is weak to your standard weapon. You have to make it through his level, fight him at the end, get his weapon, and find out which one's weak to that on the next one. And you have a certain amount of lives. If you run out of those lives, it's game over. Start from the beginning. You get no other continues. You don't get a quick save. You don't get save options. If you die, you lose all your lives. Game over. Start from the beginning. Get back to start. Too bad for you. You suck. And yeah, I did that a lot. But that's just how games were back in my day. And because of, like I said, nostalgia, people are trying to revitalize that sort of aspect in games. And yes, it's coming a lot more from the indie games, but also from things like Alien Isolation, where you have checkpoints, you have save points. But for the most part, you have to, make it through the entire area back to the save point, or you're going to have to start over back from where you last saved. True, they did have checkpoints when you transition level stages, and that is something that wasn't a thing back in the day. But, even still, at the beginning of a stage, you still have to start all the way from the beginning. And it can get frustrating, trust me, I know. Now, that's not to say there weren't games more like today's standards back in the day. I mean, we didn't have autosave back then, but things like Dragon Warriors and the original Final Fantasy, you couldn't save anywhere except on the field, or if you had a tent or a save point, and those were always few and far between, and generally if you found one, you knew there was a boss coming up. But even still, by the same standards, if you didn't grind, if you didn't level up your character, you could die easily on a boss. I remember this one game that I would say is probably the most akin to Dark Souls of today's standards, which was called Faxanadu. Weird title, I know, but it was a great game. It was a side-scrolling RPG type. It was on the original NES, and it was cool in that you could get powerful, but unforgiving in that you could still die and lose all your progress because there was no save points. So you basically had to muscle your way through everything all in one go. And I never beat that game. That game was awesome. I mean, you had to figure out, very Metroid Prime type of deal. You had to find the thing you needed to get through to the next area. I still remember the pickaxe was like the first thing you had to find, but they called it a mattock, and I didn't know what a mattock was. But I found a mattock, and I chiseled my way through a wall into the next area. I would really love to play that game again, because I think nowadays I might actually be a little bit better than I was when I played it back then. But, I mean, that wasn't the only example of types of games. But people complaining about games being too hard today literally makes me laugh. I mean, games today are so easy compared to what I did when I was a kid. And, you know, they have certain situations that make it more similar, i.e., integrating the multiplayer aspect. That was something we didn't have so much back in the day. But it still makes me laugh. Even games as early as the PlayStation are more difficult than games these days. Multiplayer notwithstanding, because you're pitting yourself against other players who have been increasingly getting better, and player on player makes it a lot more difficult. And I will definitely give kudos to people who top rank in multiplayer matches against skilled players, because that's something I will probably never be able to do. And again, like I've said, I've never played Dark Souls, so I can't vouch for the difficulty of it, but from what I've seen, it does look like a fairly difficult game. And aspects of Alien Isolation made it incredibly difficult, like the fact that you can't kill the alien, and I love that. And Cuphead, I'm not going to say it looks easy, but it definitely looks like something I'm used to playing. That, on the other hand, brings me to another topic, because I was watching Jacksepticeye play it. No, I was watching Jacksepticeye play a game with Robin. And, you know, I love it when those two get together. They are hilarious. I know, I cite Jack a lot, but I was watching them play it, and Robin actually brought up an interesting point. He said that you can't complain about Cuphead because of the fact that a game journalist did. And that, in my opinion, is wrong and stupid. Not saying that Robin is wrong and stupid, because Robin is hilarious and funny and awesome, but saying that you can't complain about something because somebody else did, and that somebody else is somebody that other people don't like. No. If you don't like something, you can complain about it. That's your freedom. Now, does that mean other people are going to, let that slide? No. But that doesn't mean that they're right and you're wrong. That doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong. In that situation, it's an opinion, and you are allowed to hold an opinion. If you don't like a game, you are allowed to say you don't like a game. I've actually said this to a few people, and I know my opinion is not exactly the most accepted opinion these days, whereas if somebody doesn't like something, they're allowed to not like it, and I'm going to let them not like it. Like, Sig Vanes recently put out a video, not recently, this was a while ago, put out a video that he's saying he doesn't like the game Prey. And I'm like, hey, you don't have to apologize if you don't like a game, man. If you don't like it, don't play it. It's fine. I'm not going to harass you. And he's like, I'm glad you have that opinion. And I'm like, I do. And I'm glad you have your opinions. And you guys get to have all your opinions. If you don't like Cuphead, don't like Cuphead. It's very simplistic. It's very short. Well, I don't know how short. I've never seen the end of it. But it's very simplistic, very repetitive, and if you don't like those aspects of the game, don't like those aspects of the game. That's fine. It is definitely a game that's set as a challenge to people to play. As such, I probably won't really play it too much because I don't play a whole lot of challenge situations, although I'm actually thinking about doing a lot more of those because honestly, I've been wanting to challenge myself, and I feel like I've been stagnating, and challenging might be a good idea. In fact, I've got a challenge set for myself here pretty soon that I'm going to try to tackle, and that's going to be fun. But anyway, that's enough of me ranting, rambling about stuff. If you have an opinion, share your opinion. If other people don't like your opinion and decide to harass you for it and be like, hey, you suck, you should love this game, you tell them why. Why should I love this game? I don't like it. It's just my opinion. If the game is subjectively bad, then you're more than welcome to have your opinion about it. Now, this is funny. I am a huge fan of the Final Fantasy series. I have been playing Final Fantasy literally since I was a kid, since the first Final Fantasy. I've played every single iteration of it, with the exception of the 2 online versions of it and a couple of the little offshoots of it. I love Final Fantasy. There are not as many people in the world who love Final Fantasy anymore. And I have actually had people tell me I'm stupid for loving Final Fantasy VII. That's my opinion. Now, if you don't like Final Fantasy VII, I'm not going to call you stupid. I'm not going to tell you, hey, you need to love this game. This game is awesome. No, I'm going to tell you straight up. Sorry, it's not for everybody, I guess. I'm glad. I'm pretty sure you've got a game that you like that I don't. Because there are a few games that I don't like. And like I always say, like I've said numerous times, I'm not a big fan of adventure games. Because they're too story heavy and not enough actual gameplay in them. And if I'm going to watch a story, I'd rather just watch a movie. Because then it's, 2 hours of my life and I can get back to whatever I need to do. That doesn't mean I don't like the stories. Because I do like the stories. Especially with the Until Dawn series. And I actually enjoyed that game a lot more than I was expecting. Having known every bit of the story, I was like, this ain't going to be a good game for me because I already know the story, and so it'll be just like rewatching the movie. But it was actually more enjoyable than I was expecting. A lot more gameplay involved than I was expecting, and I had fun with it. But then I ended up killing everybody because, frustration and whatnot. And there are a lot of people in the world nowadays who'll tell me that not liking adventure games is stupid. Sorry, I just don't like adventure games as much. Anyway, that's enough for me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and poke that like button for me. If you'd like to, comment down below. What games do you like that you have been harangued for liking? I mean, there are a few out there that will get you a little bit of beef, as it were. And that's perfectly fine. What games do you like that other people think you're weird about? And feel free to put those down in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, when I can, if I can, all that jazz. And tune in next time when we're going to talk about the biggest horror any artist, or really adult at any point, will face. Until then, night.